Right, we are recording. Hello, adventurers, and welcome. I fucking told you I fucking told you I'd absolutely barf it in the first go.
You got like a word and a half in.
Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the mic. Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the MicFlayers podcast, coming to you today from a hidden position with advantage. I am Martin O'Dwyer, your host, and with me today, as always, is your other host, Conor O'Brien. How are you doing today, Conor?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. We've got some fun stuff to talk about today. It's been a bit of a quiet week, so I've been looking forward to this. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to congratulate you, Martin, on definitely 100% nailing the intro on your first try.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, that's on record. Just want to, yeah.
And if that first try gets left in the edit, remember, I know where you live.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, cool. We've got some fun stuff to talk about today. Again, last week we did sort of a more general kind of like world building.
Freeform.
Yeah, freeform kind of like world building style kind of episode. So I thought it would be kind of cool if we did something a little more kind of linked to it, I suppose, almost like stories. But we've got I think it'd be fun to talk about a time when a player has surprised you. So like a time when you've set out like either like a puzzle or a combat encounter or some kind of skill challenge for a player, or and they've like solved that in like some unexpected way, like kind of lateral thinking is what I'm kind of getting at here, or even just something you've never seen.
Yeah, I've definitely got a couple. Some that I was like just taken aback by and impressed by players, and some where I'm like, oh, fuck you. That's the rule, so I can't say no, but yeah, fuck you.
I've had a few of those, yeah.
Yeah, you were there for the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, I'll start off with that because it's a very, very quick story.
Yeah, also linked to the previous week's story.
Yeah, actually, if you haven't seen our previous episode of the MicFlayers podcast, you can go back to episode 3. Which had a story of the Battle of Narveen, which was a drow city, and the invasion of some MicFlayers. Very interesting. But that just sets up the background a little bit. So what happened in this time when one of our regular players, you and I, he's in your game now. He's been in my game pretty much since I started playing D&D. It's our friend Mike. We've mentioned him before on the podcast. And Mike was playing a Blue Dragonborn sorcerer named Shamash in our first campaign. And we were coming up on maybe mid-levels. It was like maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. And you guys had a folding boat, which you deployed in an underdark sea. As in like a literal saltwater sea, but like entirely within the underdark. And you sailed across it to go to this one place. On the sailing back, I was like, okay, I've kind of already done some MicFlayer stuff. I'm really, really interested to try this creature that's called a Neolithid, which is, if I'm remembering the lore correctly, it's when a MicFlayer tadpole is not implanted into a host and possibly gets loose somehow when they're not kept in those little pods or those little brine pools. They are, if especially this often happens if a colony collapses, a MicFlayer colony, tadpoles will scatter and skitter, and most of them won't survive because the slightly stronger ones will eat the other ones, and eventually you get one top tier tadpole, and then those tadpoles grow into a size gargantuan creature, which is enormous.
Familiar.
Yeah, an enormous serpentine worm creature with tendrils, has a tongue, and it looks like the Demogorgon in Stranger Things, the way its mouth opens with these kind of like a flower head. And they are terrifying and very, very deadly. And I was like, I think I didn't have Volo's Guide. It appears in Volo's Guide, and I didn't have Volo's Guide very long. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to try this. This is a cool creature. It'll be a really good boss monster or something like that. And when I decided a good place to maybe try it out would be as you were sailing back across the sea. And now they don't have a swim speed normally, but I said, hey, they come from being tadpoles, which do swim in the brine. I can give them a swim speed. That's no problem. So that happened. They were sailing on the boat. The boat rocks a little bit. Something bumped it. And all of a sudden, this big head comes up out of the water, and it roars at you. And I'm like, roll for initiative. And you guys are like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Look at that thing. That's insane. And then the first round took off. And I think someone, I don't know, threw a dagger, shot an arrow, did something. Did a little bit of damage, nothing major. But I was like, okay, mark it down. Cool. Next player up, Mike. What does Shamash do? He casts Polymorph. Okay. Well, okay. He does have advantage on saving throws versus spells. So we'll see how this goes for you. Oh, okay. He got a 2 and a 3. So Mike is like, what form do you choose? He's like, he turns into a frog. Cool. A frog it is. There's a huge, enormous creature turns into a frog. And I'm like, right. Okay. I guess that's combat over then. And then, because he just turned it into a frog, and then he said, oh, what I want to do is I want to use Mage Hand to pluck it out of the water, and then I want to stick it in the bag of holding and take it with me. And I was like, right. Okay. And then I like, you do that. It's a frog. He's not going to be able to resist your Mage Hand very easily. He pops him in the bag of holding. And I start thinking, oh no. Because if anyone is listening last week to our previous episode, there was a bit where the guys discovered that the bag of holding has 10 minutes of air total. And they had already used up all the air. So as soon as the frog goes in there, he immediately starts suffocating and loses the 1 hit point he has. And I'm like, what happens if a bag of holding gets full? Because you just put in something that's the size of a frog, but in actuality, if it loses 1 hit point, it then changes back to its previous form, which is probably like hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of flesh and tentacle and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh my God. So I think I probably spent a good 10 minutes. I kind of stopped the game because I'm like, what happens here? Does the bag get destroyed? Does it tear open a portal to the astral sea? What actually happens here? And I'm panicking looking through the book, and I'm neither happy nor sad about this. I just don't know what's happening anymore. I've lost all control of the game. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the result is. So I'm quickly reading through the book, and I'm looking at the size of the creature. I'm like, that's definitely way more than, because I think it's like 1,000 pounds or something that you can store within a bag of holding, and you already have a bunch of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, we had like a bunch of treasure, a bunch of magic items. I think I had a spare set of armor in there, and it was good armor too. Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff that you gathered from well over a year of playing at that point. And yeah, so I look up, the monster's definitely too big, it will not fit in there. And then I'm like, what happens if it gets full? And apparently the bag can rip. So I don't want to just be like, oh, your bag rips, screw you. So I say to Mike, you notice that all after maybe a minute or two, you continue sailing, and after like a minute or so, the bag continues to like starts rumbling very suddenly and shaking and bulging and becoming kind of bulbous. And Mike, knowing how the bag works, goes, oh shit, I take the bag and I turn it inside out. I put my hand through it, I force it out like that, and over the side of the ship. And I describe that from out of this tiny bag of holding, this less than a foot opening, this enormous worm creature spews out and splashes back into the water. As well as literally all of the vials of blood that she gathers from the red dragon and the armor and the numerous swords and spears and all this other stuff, and it splashes into the water. Then we had to go through a very quick list of what was in the bag of holding, because I'm like, right, some of that stuff is sinking instantly to the bottom of an underdark sea, and you are not getting it back unless you want to go swimming here, which I don't recommend. So like some of the swords, the armor, I think there was a jacket or two. I'm like, they probably float. There was some vials of blood, and I'm like, well, the cork in them would float, so I'll say they'll float. And there was a few things like that, but there was a lot of items in there that was just instantly lost to the abyss, to the endless deep abyss.
Also known as most of my shit.
A lot of your shit, yeah. that Shamash had been carrying for you. And then I was like, oh, okay, excellent. Fight back on. So we go back into the initiative order. We do a couple of bits. I'm like, you can probably just keep your same initiatives. Someone goes again, something happens, blah, blah, blah. We come back around to the next turn. Mike says I cast polymorph again. And I'm like, right, okay, well, he still has advantage. So I'm just going to. Oh. And he literally rolled like a 2 and a 5 or something really terrible again, and did not withstand the polymorph. So at that point, Mike turned him back into a frog for the second time. And then he was just like, right, we'll just sail away and leave the frog. And I'm like, cool. And everyone at the table was looking at me and looking at Mike and going, Mike, you've really annoyed him. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fucking fine. I don't care. Whatever. Stupid game. But I was annoyed, but also kind of impressed, and I both in that moment I both hated and loved Mike so much. I was like, oh, fuck you, because I really wanted to use this monster, but also I can't believe that worked. That's so brilliant that it worked. But
that recent episode of Critical Role where they turned that huge monstrosity into a turtle must have been a rough watch.
That was the dragon turtle one.
Yeah. I think it was it a dragon turtle?
It was the dragon turtle on the way to that volcanic island.
No, this is when they're in they're in like an ice realm, and Matt pulls this huge monstrosity out, and I think it like instantly like stuns like 2 or 3, like half the party, and then Jester polymorphs it. Then it gets turned back into the monster again. Then Jester polymorphs it again, and then they just like turn it into a turtle, and they put it on its back, and then they just push it out across a frozen lake.
Oh yes, you're right. Sorry, yeah, and they turned it on its back like a hockey puck and sent it off across the ice. Oh,
that must have been a rough watch for you after that.
Yeah, that and the dragon turtle one not long before, they both hit kind of close to home.
Yeah,
right?
That's actually immediately what I thought of.
Some serious abuse. Like you could do. Like imagine if you had like wyvern riders chasing you, and you're just like, oh, see that wyvern? Well, now it's a rabbit. And then it just falls out of the sky, and the person who was riding the wyvern is now also falling out of the sky. That's, you can be like really. You can take a huge amount of action economy away from the DM by just polymorphing something out of the combat. Same with banishment.
Yeah, I had a moon druid in my party for most of my current campaign, and her go-to move was to once it was available was to wild shape into a T-Rex, and I think you'll find 4d12 white damage solves a lot of problems.
Absolutely.
Cool. So an example I had for this myself. I had one that you were actually there for, which was just a spell I'd never seen used before. I was running a one shot based on the first Dark Souls game, and you guys were approaching. I had this big webs layer for a boss battle coming. For anyone who's fans of the Dark Souls series, it was Quaggoth's. I think it's Quaggoth. Yeah, it's the spider witch lady. It was her lair around by Ash Lake that I repurposed for D&D. And on the way in, one of the characters, the player's name was Shane, I can't remember what his character was, but he was like, "Oh, are there
druid of some kind?"
Yeah, he was a druid, and he goes, he asked me, "Oh, are there any insects around?" And I was like, I guess there would be. There's like a couple of spiders around. I know spiders are arachnids before anyone starts jumping all over the comments. I was like, there's a few.
Actually, spiders do arachnids.
So there's a few spiders and like 1 or 2 like cockroaches or like woodlouse or something like that. And he was like, "Oh, great! I cast giant insect," and I was like, "What does that do?" And he was
I'd never heard of this spell. We've been playing D&D 4 or 5 years at this point.
Yeah, never ever. It's probably to do with the fact that we didn't really have any druids in our game.
True, yeah.
But yeah, he just basically turned like, I think it was 4 bugs into like giant versions of themselves, and essentially just brought back up immediately before the boss fight. And I was just like, I didn't even know that existed. What the fuck? But I suppose I have a longer one that I think it's a good example of exactly how chaotic being a DM is, and just having to completely adapt on the fly. It's from the campaign I'm currently running. So I had set up a mission for these guys. They were in an underwater sea elf city, and they're looking for a cult, and they're trying to find out who's in the cult. And they did this mission a mission for basically like a local thieves guild, in exchange for info on someone who's like an easy target, who's a high ranking member of the cult.
Okay.
So they did it. They get told it's this guy named Baron, and he's like, I was like, easy targets. I was like, oh, you're like a wealthy, spoiled son of like a duke or something. Kind of like that, really like that stereotypical like annoying playboy, rich boy kind of stereotype. Nice.
Yes, I think if you watch the Erois campaign by Mark Humes. One of the players plays a chromatic wizard
Yes.
guy who's
Yeah,
all like,
yeah.
"Oh, it's okay, Daddy will come and rescue me."
Yeah, pretty much
That
that.
kind of,
Pretty much that
yeah,
kind of guy. So I had it set up that they found out that he was going to be going to this specific brothel in the city, and that he'd be going there, and it's like, and in my head I thought it would be like a I had written it as and set it up as, and in my head I thought it would be like a stealth mission where you like, they'll go up, they know he's going to be here, they'll watch the building, wait for him to leave. Like half the party were rogues, and the other half of the party could like cast polymorph, so they could very easily follow him without him knowing.
it's
It
all
was like,
stealth rolls and turn it into spiders to get inside and stuff
yeah,
like that.
spider. I nearly said birds, but they're underwater, so that wouldn't really work.
Spiders probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
Either.
But yeah, I was like, this will be great. They'll do really good at this. They'll get some cool spy moments. It'll work really well. Game time comes. I give them the info, tell them where he's going to be, and they go, "Oh, this is a heist." And I went, "It's a what now?" And they were like, "Okay, we have like my rogue likes to buy magic mushrooms whenever he comes across an apothecary."
Of course.
So he had these ones. I think it was called the glass. I always give them like stupid punny names. So there was one that would make you really tired called the glass sleeper.
Okay.
And he was like, "Oh, can I use that with our druid and her alchemist supplies? Can we make like a sleeping tonic?" And I was like, yeah, you can. He was like, "Okay, here's the plan." So, right, the rogue had a disguise. So he disguised himself as, in his own words, a busty bar wench. And then the sorcerer went in, bought a load of drink, then joined the guy at the table because she had the best charisma. So she started to just chat him up and like bullshit him and just kind of keep him occupied. Then we had the other rogue, who was a halfling rogue. He did the Assassin's Creed thing, where you can like buy off a group of people to go over and distract the guards.
Yeah.
So he went and he hired two women from the brothel and was like, "Yeah, go have drinks with his bodyguards there and distract them and just like keep them company." And so they sent him over there. What happens is then they rent a room in the brothel above, 1 floor up, right? They've set the druid up there. The druid makes a sleeping potion in there. The rogue uses a hat of disguise to disguise himself, goes up there with a tray, gets the drink, gets the potion, pours it in a pint glass, comes back down with it on a tray, passes by the table as the target is being distracted by the sorcerer. His bodyguards are missing because the other rogue has bribed them, and he has really good sleight of hand. So he bumps the table and goes. And,
this is some serious Ocean's 11 shit.
Oh my god! I was both incredibly like panicked, but also incredibly proud of them for coming up with this on the fly. And he literally just like bumps the table, and goes, "Oh, sorry, my lord," and like spills the sleeping potion into your man's drink. His bodyguards aren't there. The only other person at the table watching is in on it. And then they just continue drinking with the guy for the night. His bodyguards disappear with the two women. The rogue that hired the other two and was drinking with the bodyguards and the two of them, he stealths out the back, comes back up around, and because it's the ocean, swims up onto the second floor, comes in through a window, and is on the second floor out of sight. And then they proceed to drink with him. They go, "Come on, we'll go and play some cards." And then he gets up and he kind of, the potion takes effect and he starts something, and they're like, "Oh no, are you sick? Do you want to have a lie down? We have a room upstairs." And he's like, "Oh, you're so good. Thank you so much, friends. I'm so happy I could have met you tonight." They bring him upstairs, tie him to the bed. They magically confuse him. Let them have a little leeway with the confusion spell in terms of just mind muddling stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then made them roll like persuasion and intimidation rolls on top of it. And eventually they get out the info they need from him. But then they go, "Oh no, he's seen all of our faces."
No.
Right? Meanwhile, the second rogue, the halfling, has been standing outside the door, just chilling in the doorway, kind of keeping watch, but keeping a low profile in case for when the bodyguards are coming back in. So he's completely alien to all of this. Inside the door, then they get the information they needed, and during the process of interrogation, I had him go into like because I had him statted out as a cult fanatic, and they have advantage on saves versus fear and charm. And so I kind of took a twist on that and had that be that when eventually they started getting towards more, they started asking more detailed questions about the cult and who was in it, what was in it. I think it's called fanatical focus on the thing. So I just took that as an inspiration. Said he like snaps into like this weird trance and starts like speaking in a lower register, and his eyes white over, and he's just like bound there speaking like this like crazy gravelly voice that isn't his, and he kind of gives them some information, but then starts to like just clam up, and you're like, all right, he's not giving us anything else, and he's seen all of our faces. Shit. And so they decide they're going to need to kill him, and then they go, what will we do with the body? And they're like, oh shit, what will we do? How can we get rid of the body? Like, there's lots of people downstairs. The druid goes, don't worry lads, I've got this, and turns into a great white shark
and eats him.
And eats the fucking body.
Oh god.
Right? And the entire time the other halfling is outside. And I was like, would this happened? And I said, roll a perception check. And he think you rolled like an 18 or something. You rolled pretty high. And I was like, you hear like these crunching noises coming from behind the door, and then you look down at your feet and you see these rivulets of red begin to streak out from underneath the doorframe because it's all underwater and fucking like the blood diffuses in the water.
Yeah.
So like he's standing at the door and these streaks of blood just start streaming out from under the door like ink. And in my head I was so hoping that he would go, what's going on? And like all of it then would just come out. Yeah. But thankfully for him, but it would have made it more fun for me. But he realized what happened, and he hopped out the window, swam around to the window on the other side, and went, the fuck is going on, guys? And then saw all the red inside, and they were just like, oh, okay. And they were like, fuck, you have to get out. So
there's just two people in there. One of them is holding a shark upwards. Someone else is trying to force feed a body into it like a wood chipper. And there's just red all over the place.
Yeah. And they were like, oh crap, how can we get out without letting all the blood out? And then one of them just goes, we're on the second floor and it's night at sea. No one's going to see it. And he just boots the window open and swims out, because they don't have to leave by the front door either because it's underwater, so they can just swim out. There was so many times I forgot the necessity that like stealth would not be a necessity because gravity doesn't really apply.
Yeah, we need to get onto the third floor.
Yeah, it was just such a twist on what I expected. Like I was like, you're all good at stealth. You can just track this guy down, take him out on his own. All good. I expected him to like catch him, interrogate him, and I knew my players. I expected to kill him. I just didn't expect them to weaponize a giant shark to do so.
to have one of the players eat him.
Yeah. Oh god, man! But like, I was both horrified and really, really proud of their ingenuity.
You never told me that story before, but I really like it. That's a prime example of just like, well, one, there's multiple surprises in that. Like you did not expect them to do a whole heist thing and make it a whole Ocean's 11. Hey, it's underwater. Ocean's 11.
I had about the whole thing went over 2 sessions, but the first half of it was that session I prepped as like a stealth mission. But then when I came into the second half, which is where the interrogation stuff was, I had more stuff prepped and kind of laid out. But yeah, for like, I'd say at least a good probably 45 minutes of the session, I had to just, the last 45 minutes of the session probably, I just had to completely just like, and this happens, and this happens, and this guy comes in, and he's wearing this kind of armor. What do you mean, what's his crest? It's a cloud with a lightning bolt. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a lot of fun, and it's one of my favorite memories from my current campaign so far, and just I think a great time where someone surprised me. And then that as well, just the other one, I just had never seen giant insects as well before, and thought it was cool as fuck.
Yeah, I was playing that game where Shane used giant insect. I was just looking it up there. There is limits or so it's either you can transform up to 10 centipedes, 3 spiders, 5 wasps, or 1 scorpion within range into a giant version of them.
I think it was 3 spiders he picked.
So he picked 3 spiders, and I think you had 3 tunnels. So we were trying to figure out which one to go down. So he was like, hey, you go there, you go there, you go there, and then tell us which one has what's down each one. And from that, we actually managed to suss out which one was the correct one to get to the central layer and stuff, which was, again, you and me were sitting at the table going, "What? I don't know that spell." Oh my god, that's amazing.
I remember he said, "Can I cast it?" And I was like, I think I actually looked at you and went, "Connor, do you know what this does?"
Oh yeah, I know, no clue. But again, you and I, until your most recent game, I guess, hadn't ever run a game for a druid. None of our characters or players have ever played druids, and I've never played a druid myself. I don't think you have either. So
no, but it's on the list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was thinking of you don't play Apex, do you? Apex Legends?
No, I played it a little bit, but I'm not a big BR fan.
Okay, there is a new character in it called Horizon, the most recent season, and she's kind of a space explorer, and she has these gravity gadgets and stuff like that. And just on the topic of characters that we were planning on playing or something like that, I thought she had a whole thing where she was trapped in the event horizon of a black hole, so time was running differently for her. So her daughter grew up and died as an old woman and everything, and she missed out all her loved ones' lives until she eventually managed to escape. And I thought that could be a really, really cool character if you play like an artificer, human, or a mix it in Graviturgid if you want, yeah. And then you could also do, but have it be that she accidentally got transported to the Astral Sea because you don't age in the Astral Sea.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And she could have been trapped there for 300 years and all of her family has aged and grown old, and you come back and you're kind of a fish out of water because you're like, oh, everything's different, but and all my family are gone and stuff. It'd be really cool. Really cool character.
Very Ellen Ripley vibes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's actually, now to think about it, that's probably where they got the inspiration for the character. But yeah, that is. I really like that. I really like the heist thing. Every time you mention, what's the name of the city? It's Kirith something.
Cirith Lowry.
Cirith Lowry.
Yeah.
Every time you mention that underwater city and everything that goes on in it, and the fact that half the adventures occur underwater and the shark racing and all this other stuff. Every time you mention it, I'm like, oh, that's so damn cool. I love it so much. That's a really really unique town. And that was kind of one of the first major towns they went to.
It was the first backstory arc, because I had them do. I think I got them there around level 5 or 6. So I had them do like the early levels, all on the main like human continent, and then there was like an attack on the city they were operating out of that was from the cult based in that city, and one of my players is also from that city, so it was just a really good opportunity for them to go and do his backstory. And I think we spent about a month playing through that arc. I kind of shoot for about like a month ish when I'm running like an arc, like at least 4, 5, 6 sessions.
Yeah.
If it's like a bigger one, I might even go a few sessions longer. But yeah, that was just like, I think that was like the first real big area where they got to explore all their backstory. I ran a game last night, and it was one of the most enjoyable moments of being a DM. Was my players just had drinks around the campfire and spoke in character about their backstories for about 20 minutes, and it was absolutely brilliant.
I love that. I like. Do we have time for any more impressed player moments? Or
yeah, we've time.
Cool. I do have one. Just when you're talking about players speaking in character and stuff like that, the one with Mike and the polymorph and all that is probably the one where I was like surprised and kind of caught off guard, but also like a little bit annoyed, which I think is a common thing for DMs. Like, oh, I'm proud, but also, oh,
yeah.
Fuck you.
It's like, I really wanted to use this ability, but I'm also incredibly impressed by the fact that you've made me not be able to use this ability.
It's absolutely it's Vader to Obi-Wan in A New Hope when he's like, when I left you I was but the apprentice, now I am the master. It's when your players finally outdo you and you're like, oh, I was the dungeon master, but I've just been outdone. Oh, but yeah, just talking about players surprising us and players being good role players and all that. There was a game I ran about a year ago actually. I ran my first game for our friend Gavin. Gavin had basically put up on Facebook, he's like, does anyone play Dungeons & Dragons, and will they run a game for me because I'm dying to play, and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'll run a game for you, no problem at all. And it was, I'm like, just gather like 3 other people, and we'll get a nice 4-person squad, which is a party or whatever, which is like exactly what you kind of want. And we'll run a game. So I had a plan that they would take a contract from a guy who wants them to go and kill a vampire. Because obviously vampires, they can bite people and make other vampires, so the whole situation can get out of hand really fast. And this guy was like, I'm like a third party hire by the church, because the church doesn't deal directly with adventurers, but I'm now hired by the church to in turn hire someone to do the job. So you need to take this, and he gave him like this, basically like a injection kind of magic. It's a magic item basically, and they're like, when you destroy the vampire's physical body, it will take a mist form. So you'll need to capture the mist form with this and seal it inside of this object, bring it back to me, and then I can give it to the church because they can properly destroy them with like holy magic. And they were like, oh yeah, sure, no problem at all. So they went on the quest, and there was a train thing, and there was a fight in the woods, and there was even a little puzzle I threw in. It's one of my better rounded one-offs. And they get to the house where the vampire is, and they find that the vampire's killed a bunch of people. There's blood everywhere, and at some point he'd also killed his own wife and daughter. So he's there with no one living around him, and he wants to die. He's like, I'm a monster. I've done the most horrific things. Please kill me, And they were kind of talking to him at first, which I really loved. They basically because they were in a fight previously and they hadn't fully healed up, and I wrote this in my notes. If they have not fully healed up each, one of them will still be bleeding from the previous fight.
Oh.
In which case, he steps forward, and he steps forward to be like, okay, I'll accept my fate. Please, kill me, paladin. And as soon as he steps forward, his eyes dilate, and he starts breathing really heavy. And I turn to, and I think I mentioned this player before. I turn to Courtney and I say, Courtney, Thea looks down and sees that there is blood dripping down her baby finger and onto the floor next to you. And he looks at you. Roll for initiative. So that all kicked off, right? And it was a great fight, and they managed to catch him, and they caught the mist once he turned into mist form. They actually battered him. They sent in the armored cleric and the armored paladin, pushed him into a corner, and then summoned 2 spiritual weapons and were just like whack, 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 whack. I was just absolutely clobbered him. Thea, who was a high elf necromancer, caught the mist inside of the containment thing, and they brought it back. So I was kind of expecting to be like, okay, so once they capture the mist, or if they succeed, I'll just kind of fast track it at that point. The quest is basically done. I'll fast track it at that point, and I'll just basically describe them fast traveling back to town and dropping off the thing and getting paid and all this other stuff. And I was going to just run through that, and it was actually kind of close to when we would finish anyway. The session went on for about 30 or 40 more minutes, because they were so into it after the fight and so heavy in the role play. And I should preface it by saying, Gavin had never played before. He was somewhat familiar with Critical Role and stuff like that, but he'd never played before. His girlfriend had also never played before and was less familiar with Critical Role, I think, than he was. Mm-hmm. There was another guy there. There was Courtney. Courtney is an actress, but had never played D&D before. And Courtney's boyfriend had done pantos and acting and stuff like that as well. But again, he'd only played a little bit of D&D. Mm. So really, most people here were newbies, and they took to act to like the role play aspect like fish to water. It was amazing. I was so blown away. I came back from this session absolutely buzzing, and they got so into the role play that when they got back to town, they went into the tavern. They found the guy. Who you will know. I think I told you this before. The guy is one of the big bads.
Yes.
Who is Strauss. And Strauss was disguised as a human, but he is actually a high elf, or a fire elf, as I call them in my world. And they kind of went to him and goes, what they said was, right, we want to suss this guy out because we're not 100% trustworthy of him. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem at all. They start rolling some insights. They ask, can they speak to him in a more quiet section of the bar? 3 of them go that way. One of them is like, I'm going to go and find his room. And I'm like, okay, you do that. Make a I don't know, an investigation check to see if you can identify which room is his. She rolled dirt low. And I'm like, you find a room. And I'm cutting back and forth. And the guys at the table are like, so, you said you were hired by the church and they're going to dispose of this properly, destroy this vampire, right? He's like, absolutely. That's exactly what they're going to do. And they're just not really feeling this guy. And they're rolling inside checks. And I think a couple of them did quite well. I'm like, yeah, you get the feeling that maybe there's an alternate motive here or something like that, that he's kind of telling you what you want to hear. And he looks at the paladin. Now, the paladin's a tiefling. And tieflings would, in I think a lot of D&D worlds, are kind of treated quite poorly because of their infernal heritage. And he looks at him, and I'm now I'm on my heels because I'm thinking, oh man, I need to get this guy out of here and not get killed by these guys because he's technically part of my other canon. I need to get this guy out of here. And I need to find a way that I can do it and that he can get the thing he needs from them as well. Because currently, Thea, the fire elf necromancer, is still holding it. So he turns to the paladin and he says, haven't you always hated how humans treat you? How they always, they're superior, and I'm sure you've lived a hard life because of what they do to people any different from them, And of course, Gavin turns around to me and he goes, yeah, I don't really give a fuck, man. I don't trust you. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then I'm looking around and I look at the dwarf cleric and I'm like, okay, he's a dwarf and he's a cleric. There's no way he's going to be the guy to side with me. But Strauss, who I know is a fire elf and a necromancer, looks at Thea, who's also a fire elf and a necromancer. And I'm like, okay, this might be my shot here. So I turn to Courtney. And again, I'd never met Courtney before tonight as well. And I turn to her and I say, don't you, you know what humans are like, what they've done to our kind. And he drops his disguised self and they see the fire elf form of him. And so he's like, you and I, tell me, I've seen what you can do. You obviously practice the art of necromancy. Why? And she says, my sister died very young because of an illness, and I've been looking for a way to bring her back. And he says, I can help you. I can show you what you need to know to bring your sister back. And he means it. He's not bullshitting. He's not lying for the sake of it. He means it. And he says, if you're willing to work with me, are you willing? And he puts out his hand. And I hold out my hand to Courtney. And then she thinks for a second and goes, I'm willing. And she takes my hand. And I say, Dimension Door. And the two of them disappear out with the vial, with the mist trapped inside of it. And the other two are left at the table going, what the fuck just happened? And I was so impressed. Like the whole game, I was so impressed with all of their role playing. But in that moment, Courtney fell into the role. And she was not being Courtney, being a character. She was thinking, I am Thea, and I want my sister back, and I'm going to join up with this guy because he's a fire elf and a necromancer, and he might have the knowledge I need. And she's thinking about her character in that moment. She's not playing a game in a team of 4 people. She is playing the character, and I loved it. It was one of the best twists I've ever done. Definitely ever in a one-shot. It was just phenomenal. I was so impressed by everyone. I came back to my apartment that night, and I was buzzing. My hands were shaking. I had so much fun at that bloody session.
That sounds awesome, and I love it when like someone just absolutely goes for it and like isn't afraid to like look silly and just goes for it, because like I think that's what stops most people kind of like really going for their role playing. It's something I experienced as well, just like anxiety about looking dumb. And I think that like that already, that anxiety is going to like stifle whatever creativity that you had planned. Like, because if you're like, oh, I have something cool planned, and then it comes time to say it, and if you haven't like it written down in front of you or something, or you're just trying to make something up on the fly and you're already getting anxious, your brain just starts shutting off options. So like you might have been able to deliver the like Aragorn at the Black Gate speech in your best form, but as soon as you start thinking I look dumb, you're going to start looking like fucking I was like Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder.
It's like that's gonna be a crutch for a lot of people, or not a crutch so much, but a hindrance. If everyone at the table doesn't have the same level of buy-in, then and I don't think it's anyone's fault really. People are comfortable where they're comfortable. But I think if some people at the table are kind of just here to play a game and roll some dice and whatever, but some people are there to really play a character, those people that really want to play a character might feel a little hindered sometimes just because they don't want to. They might feel like I'm not in the right audience. I'm not with the right people to be in this kind of, I will smote this beast kind of thing,
Yeah, I think like as long as I think you can have people who are different levels of buy-in, not necessarily buy-in, but like different levels of investment in the role play. As long as everyone at the table like supports the person who is.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never say to to try and push anyone into a space they're not comfortable in. Feel free to throw someone the ball every now and again and see how they react. And if they don't, maybe throw a fishing line is probably a better metaphor. And if they don't bite, that's fine. You've gone kind of like, here's an option. And if they just go, if they don't want to do a voice or even speak as their character, they just go, yeah, my character accepts. That's perfectly fine as well. As long as they're having fun and enjoying the game, they can speak in the third person, like, oh, my character Aratok will he'll run up to this guy here and he'll say that he doesn't like this idea, and then but you don't have to be like, I'm Aratok, I think that what you're doing is wrong and I'm going to stop you. You don't have to be the whole thing. As long as that person is comfortable where they are, that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important thing is just go for it. And if someone is kind of taking a moment to go for it, as long as it's not being excessive, I would say just like be encouraging, be supportive.
If the next person at the table then immediately after Aratok goes and says it in third person, if the next person's like, my halfling rogue, the most cleverest man on the high seas, is now going to do or whatever. If he immediately falls into this insanely detailed character and stuff, that's that can even bring people onto a level sometimes. Someone who's really really into the roleplay and someone who's not can kind of one will bring the other down and one will bring the other up, and they'll kind of average out, and you get a good vibe at the table sometimes. Then.
Yeah, because like I've definitely played in games where there's been like mixed levels of buy-in and stuff, and like particularly a role play, and just as long be sound, just be nice, just be sound,
just be good to each other. That's all we ask.
As the ancient scholars, the wild stallions once said, be excellent to each other.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, speaking of wild stallions, Connor, I think it'd be cool if we had a bit of a chat about something that came out recently and something that has been sort of, I don't want to say a problem, but like a point of debate or a point of a pain point, I'd say, for a lot of players in the past, and that's animal companions and then leading on to also sidekicks. I bring this up because
comments about this topic.
Yes, I bring this up because we have both played characters that have had pets. I have one currently. You played one before, and I think it would be a good idea just kind of talk about what it was like trying to run like a pet or like any kind of animal companion in 5e prior to Tasha's, and then maybe we can have a bit of a chat about sidekicks then for the rest of the time.
So when I was playing my very first character, Vaskeen Ironwood, half-elf ranger, greatest archer in the land, he had a pet wolf. So we got to third level. The DM says you can be a hunter or you can be a beastmaster. And I said, what's a hunter do? He's like, he's slightly better at fighting. Okay, what's a beastmaster do? You get a pet wolf. Well, I'm fucking sold. Pet wolf it is. And you should bear in mind I did not understand the game very well at the time. But a pet wolf sounded dope as hell to me, so I was all for it. I got a. Funnily enough, I remember we were in a cave, and I think I missed a session actually, and we were in a cave, and then I missed the next session, and then on session 3 we were still in the cave, and I showed back up, and they're like, oh, by the way, I got a wolf now because I leveled, but there's no explanation. I just showed up and like, oh, by the way, this is my wolf. I found him, I guess, elsewhere in the cave, and I named him Greybane. And the reason I named him was because in that fight we fought some sort of celestial, like this neutral celestial angel creature, and Greybane actually saved me because when I got knocked down by it, he ran up and attacked it, and it failed the strength save as a wolf, and I got knocked prone. And as a result, I thought, oh, this is like a neutral thing, so Grey, and he was the bane of this angelic celestial creature, so I called him Greybane. So I had him for quite a while. I don't think I'm out of line with saying that Beastmaster, as it appears in the player handbook, the normal print of it, is not the best subclass. We'll just leave it at that. We can rant about this for another hour in a different episode.
We could do an entire hour-long episode just about Ranger and Beastmaster. And if that's something you guys want to see, leave a comment below, and we'll be happy to take the heat for that particular topic for a week.
Nice.
That's definitely a you week, though.
I had the experience, I guess. So I had Greybane for a while. He was good for attacking. I'd let him go in and do the whole frontline thing, and then I was an archer, so I would hang back, and we would kind of do things that way. He was. I don't remember being too much of a hindrance in terms of like we're climbing something, someone has to carry our dog kind of thing. But he did die, unfortunately. We were in an invisible maze, in which there was a minotaur, and foolishly we decided to split the party. We kind of thought, okay, let's go. One of us will go this way, and a couple of us will go this way, a couple of us will go that way. And I was kind of leading on the right-hand path, which actually was the more direct route into the center of the maze where the minotaur was. And so I sent Greybane out in front. As we all know, minotaurs, I believe, hit with a 2d12 plus their strength mod.
Yes,
by damage, which is pretty hefty.
Particularly like level 3.
We were like level. We weren't that high a level, and the problem with the subclass as it is in the PHP is PHP. Sorry, I was just thinking that acronym makes no sense.
Sorry, it looked like you were buffering for a second.
But yeah, the animal you choose as your companion does not scale well. So early on, levels 1 to 3, maybe even 4 and 5. Your animal companion is grand. They do a nice little bit of damage depending on what animal you pick, whether it's a bear or wolf or whatever. They can be good if you're, especially with like flanking rules or something like that. You can position your creature to give you flanking. But they don't scale well. They don't get a lot of extra health. Their ability to hit and the damage they do does not go up by that much, if at all, I think. And it's a poor class. Greybane ended up getting killed. He took like one hit and that knocked him down to 0. And then I think the DM had me doing death saves, and I rolled. I think he got hit actually again, because we were in the passageway through the maze was a 5-foot wide passage, so the minotaur was kind of squeezing in, and Greybane was in front of me, and I couldn't get in front of Greybane to protect him because it was like minotaur, Greybane, me. I had no space to move into. So Greybane kind of had to take the heat, and the GM was like, he has another attack and he can't reach you. So and I'm like, it's okay, I know. So he hits him, automatic crit, so 2 failed. Then it comes around to my turn. I make a roll for him. I fail. He's dead. Quite upsetting. And I was like, I didn't know what the protocol was, because in the book, again, another thing they don't tell you how to get your companion back. They don't. There's no way of reviving them. There was, I think, in the revised Ranger, they had a thing where you could
you do a ritual for an hour and you can summon their spirit back, I think.
Exactly, yeah. Which is good. That was definitely an improvement.
Much needed improvement.
Yeah, but I didn't have that wasn't a feature at the time. And I was the DM was kind of saying, oh, you can go to the woods, you can find another wolf, you can get another different animal if you want, whatever you want to do. And I was honestly kind of like, do you know what? My heart's been broken one too many times. Can I swap my subclass to Hunter? Which I feel is a good transition.
Hunter's a very, very solid subclass for Ranger as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get some really good abilities. So I did that. He was okay with me swapping. I just became a Hunter instead. That was my first experience with it. At the time, I did not dislike Ranger. And again, this is not the We Hate Rangers episode of the podcast.
I love a load of Ranger subclasses, particularly the newer ones. Newer Ranger subclasses are dope.
Oh yeah, there's some really, really good. The subclasses really making the new ones, and the new abilities and Tasha's, I think, make them a very well-rounded class. But yeah, the Beastmaster was not great, and having a beast companion like that, and how weak they are in combat, you end up babysitting them. You mentioned it a while ago. Laura Bailey in Critical Role had Trinket, her bear, in campaign 1, and Trinket, I mean, after a certain time, because he's a bear, and he can't always climb certain things or fly or do certain things that the rest of the party can do, and the fact that he was, by the time they were like after level 10, definitely after level 15, he was so incredibly squishy. I don't think she was bringing him on all of their quests. She was sometimes leaving behind because he's more of a hindrance you have to protect in a fight, because he can get killed very, very easily.
It's something I've been dealing with for like the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 sessions with, because I have Frost now, my dog. And like literally every time there's a combat encounter now, I thankfully, because it's a Valinor hound, I can just like mentally tell it, if something bad happens, go hide, and then I will tell you when to come back to me. And it just goes off and hides. Or like, geez, I remember like we were going down like a tunnel shaft, and then we had to jump down. So we brought the dog down on a broom flying with our halfling and another halfling. And then I just leapt down and like sunk to my waist in literal excrement.
Yeah.
And then I had to take the dog off the broom and hold it over my head to bring it to the like island of clean stone that was off to the side. I just remember being like,
Well, I wouldn't say it was clean stone, but yeah, sure.
comparatively.
Yeah.
And set him down.
Comparatively,
Yeah.
everything is cleaner than this cavern.
Yeah. And fucking had to set it down. I remember just being like, okay, the dog is fine. And then I turned around and a literal shit demon rose in front of me. I was just like,
yeah. He again, same flaw with the thing is that again, this was before the psychic rules. Well, I think the UA had come out, but we hadn't actually gotten the.
I think we'd spoken about putting it into the game, but we were kind of waiting to see how it shook out.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously with the release of it now in Tasha's, I'm quite happy with it. I think it's actually really, really good.
So am I.
Well, this means your dog likely won't die.
It means my dog is almost as tanky as I am.
Your dog is tankier than two of our other party members because I believe he's definitely tankier than the Warlock, and I'm pretty sure he might be a little bit tankier in terms of health points than the Bloodhunter. Ironically,
in terms
who needs
of
to use his health points to fuel his abilities.
We'll get on to how strong and weak we think they're in a second, but like just in terms of raw hit points, it's second only to me.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Is it more than Wabu as well?
It's 2 points more than Wabu.
Oh my god! For context, Wabu is the like 500-pound zealot barbarian turtle in our party who is just a wall of flesh and shell, and somehow has 2 less hit points than this skimpy little fairy dog.
It's not a skimpy little fairy dog, Connor. Come on.
That's the hound of the fae. He's a fairy dog.
Okay, he's getting trained.
He'll be a buff.
Yes,
fairy dog.
He'll be a war dog by the time I'm done with him.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think.
I was picturing him doing like press ups, which is just him sitting.
Oh, yeah, him going like that.
It's just him sitting down and standing up again, and you're just there like a drill sergeant, like 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
By the end of it, it's like we do the Hercules montage. At the end of it, I'm like standing on his back, and he's going like, oh.
Yeah. It'd be like one of those Dobermans you see with the fucking shoulders on them.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, or those like really jacked pit bulls. Holy fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Sorry, that was just a strange tangent, but it's kind of become our shtick now. Cool. Yeah. So I suppose what I really wanted to get onto was, do you think, given the new psychic rules, that sidekicks are maybe too powerful?
Can I just say I do like the idea.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a wizard having an apprentice, of a knight having a squire, of a thief having a slightly smaller thief. I love the idea of having these extra people in your party, and they can also help a little bit in like rounding out a party sometimes as well. You know, our current party, for example, we have 2 barbarians, a warlock, and a bloodhunter. No healers. There are no. So they have a warlock, but the warlock is kind of a unique magic user. You don't have any like wizard or sorcerer level magic users. You can do big spells really easily, or a lot in a day. So yeah, like I think the psychic rules can be good for rounding out a party. You know, because I like to not have my players know what each of them are going to play before a game starts, because I like the surprise of meeting those characters for the first time at the table. But that inevitably leads to, like, we have 2 barbarians and no healers. And then we end up kind of having these gaps in the dynamic of the party. So not a bad idea if you wanted to bring a member in and they're like, oh, they're going to be the healer, or this person is maybe you only have one tanky character and a bunch of spellcasters or a couple of rogues or something like that. Oh, this person's going to be like a warrior, I believe they're called, isn't it? In the
warrior.
Yeah, warrior. Yeah. This person's going to be the warrior, and they're going to be spec'd out just to be the kind of tank and take a lot of the hits. And I think you can be good at rounding out a class like that. But I do worry that because they're so good, like, if you can get a sidekick, if your DM is okay with sidekicks, so you can have a squire, an apprentice, small thief. Why would you
a thiefling?
A tiefling, thank you. Oh, that's good. But if that's the case, why would you ever play a ranger beastmaster, or even to that extent, the battlesmith artificer? If they give you a companion that scales, to be fair, both there's been retcons to the battlesmith as well, which has made your psychic,
the mechanical servant, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's made it way more functional. It levels up nicely and scales nicely as well. So that it's quite good now. Before it wasn't great. It's actually quite good now to the point where I'm like, I'd actually happy to play that. Like I said, they've also improved the Beastmaster Ranger, so that with Tasha's and stuff as well, to the point where now it's actually really playable, and I'm like, I would actually play that again, you know. But then my problem is both of those versions of having a companion are considerably weaker than a sidekick, and also, as well as being weaker than the sidekick, all of your subclass features go towards having that sidekick, when instead you could be like, well, what if I want to play a ranger hunter who's better at fighting, or gloomstalker, or any of the ranger subclasses, and get all those subclass abilities? Then just have a sidekick that's a wolf that I level up with the warrior abilities and more powerful. I do worry that it kind of makes those companion based subclasses a little bit irrelevant, or a little bit, like, again, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, there's some unique stuff in those subclasses with working with your companion and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, they are very powerful to the point where it's just a whole other character. It's just here's a second character. They even level the same way and have abilities that are pulled direct. Like the warrior, for example, is just a combination of base fighter abilities, a couple things from champion, and a couple things from barb, I think.
Yeah.
And it makes for a super well-rounded fighter. Why would you ever need to have, as a result, like a battlesmith, some other fighter, or a wolf as a ranger, or anything like that just can't perform the same in a combat scenario?
I suppose, just in relation to, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I can see where you're coming from with that. I would take a slightly different viewpoint on it, though, in that I would look at this as a way to fulfill the same character roles or character archetypes without having to be a ranger or an artificer. Like, if you wanted to be, like, I don't know, like I suppose, like, instead of, if you wanted to be something like an artificer but weren't a fan of the mechanical servant, but still wanted to have like a pet or like a guard dog or something like that. We'll say guard dog just to be easier, right? You could take levels in gunslinger. You could take levels in gunslinger, and you have your gunsmithing and your tinkering, and you could be an inventor, and instead of having that mechanical servant, you could have like your loyal hound, or like a hawk that scouts for you, or all of these things, and then you could actually build like mechanical stuff for them to add to them as like add-ons that kind of boost them up, stuff like that. I absolutely do agree. I think, like, yeah, it does step on things' toes a little bit, particularly like if you've any of the more play-in martial classes, I think it could step on their toes a bit. So I think it's just a good idea with this, like we said, start clear it with your DM first, have a good look at it together, talk about what you want for it. If both of you are okay with it, like me, like you're pretty okay with everything in it, from the conversations we've had, like, and I even, because you can't build them on D&D Beyond right now because they haven't coded it in yet. But I
feature for it
I basically did a Google Doc where I used the rules and I built out my dog Frost to I believe the level 9 sidekick, level 9 warrior sidekick, and then I just sent you the sheet and was like, this is what he'll be like. And yeah, he's pretty strong, but like, I don't know, like, I suppose my main question here is, would you say it's overpowered?
I yeah, honestly, it's kind of hard to say. If I was designing this, because they're meant to be a sidekick and not a whole other character, if I was designing this, I think trying to think retroactively, looking back, if I was in the position, I may have possibly looked at it from the position of, well, whatever level you are, your sidekick is always half of that. Which isn't, I think it fits the role of them definitely being the second, like they're your apprentice, they're your squire, whatever.
That I would only worry about is for survivability of bringing.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, exactly. Because if you have 3 or 4 10th level characters in a party, and they're fighting something that is scaled for a 10th level party, like a dragon or whatever the big creature they fight might one-shot a 5th level character.
Yeah, I think making it
that's the problem.
I think making it a half level thing would basically turn sidekicks back into pets again, and that would be the issue.
Yeah.
I think they're strong, but they need to be strong by necessity to have them actually worth something in the game. Like otherwise, they're just an aesthetic pet. You can see it in Critical Role the entire time. Is it Sprinkle, Laura Bailey's ferret that lives inside her, the immortal ferret that lives inside the armor and only appears to be fed sweets?
They only feed it sugar, and then whenever they go through a situation where Laura or anyone else is swimming underwater for an extended period of time,
or she'll get hit with a fireball.
Yeah. And then they only remember after the fight or after the encounter, oh, Sprinkle was with you, Laura, this whole time, right? And she's like, yeah, but he's fine. Yeah, but he probably should have taken 60 or 86 fire damage there, but sure.
So I think there's if you don't do the sidekicks thing, I think there's only really 2 ways you can go down the route with that, and it's either you have a completely superficial pet who can't take any actions in combat and is basically just an accessory, like a piece of clothing, and because they can't really impact the game at all, and it's more just for character and flavor stuff where you can kind of you can do stuff like just just like the Sprinkle stuff, where it just appears to be cute and kind of have cute character moments with it and stuff like that. Or you can go the other way and actually have a pet character that is involved in combat and just accept the reality that at a certain point you're going to have to do as a rotating death zoo of pets that's just going to come through every second encounter. Your pet's going to die.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I like your take on it there. Where you're because I'm obviously looking at it from the perspective of the sidekicks make these 2 classes irrelevant.
But I think as well, you could combine both too. You could do a Beastmaster Ranger and then start leveling your Beastmaster companion as a sidekick.
Yeah, I wouldn't see a problem with that. To bring it up on par with everything.
I think that'd even be stronger than the base sidekick, though, wouldn't it? So, same thing. Say, Lug was instead of being a barbarian, was a Beastmaster. And I had Frost, and Frost had the Beastmaster benefits, and then Tasha's comes out, and then we level Frost to 9 in Warrior and Sidekick. He would have the 9 Warrior levels, and then he would have all the benefits from the Beastmaster class as well.
If you stack them for definite, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was saying I'd have to look over
that would be hideously broken. I think just after I'm not familiar with Beastmaster rules, but I just think if it was just stacking even more benefits and more to hit, I think doesn't Ranger if you go Beastmaster, if 2 of you hit the same target or something, it does more damage, or because it can
features
that it can proc your I think it can proc your Hunter's Mark or something, can't it? Your Beast Companion.
I honestly I should have read over it. I didn't before the podcast.
I didn't either because I've literally not looked at Ranger in years.
Oh, same.
Aside from the subclasses, but I would say that'd probably be verging towards too powerful. I think where they're at right now, they are definitely effective, but it's maybe something we can revisit in a while once we have Frost in the game as a warrior sidekick and we can play with just looking at his stats, I think he'll be strong. But I'm fairly certain he'll be strong. But again, he doesn't have barbarian resistance, so he can still take it's not like he can just shrug off a load of damage. He has a lot of hit points, but he doesn't have anything special about it. He's just just kind of.
I do like the idea.
I
do like the idea that rather than, like I was saying, rather than making those 2 companion-based subclasses irrelevant. Instead of closing off those opportunities, opening the opportunities of I don't want to play Artificer, I don't want to play a Ranger, I want to play a Rogue, but I want to have a pet bird, a hawk or something. Yeah, you should totally be allowed to do that, and you should totally be allowed to have that hawk be, like you said. I don't think there's anything wrong with having companions, like pet companions, and then because like we had our entire
we had a menagerie of animals in our first fucking campaign.
But like just for example, Binky the dire squirrel.
Yeah.
I made up a stat block for dire squirrels and everything, but Binky, I what I said to Dan when he started, when he asked could I have a pet dire squirrel, I was like, you can, but I don't want to be like unfair to other players, so like he'll really only be a roleplay accessory. He won't really factor into combat or be able to do anything like that. He's pretty strictly like in roleplay moments you can do funny things with him and stuff, and I'm okay with that. But I think that like that's fine. I do like the idea that you can play a different character. Like he was a rogue, he's a rogue who had a pet. I do like the idea that you can play a rogue and it can have a sidekick, and it has tangible mechanical impact on the game as well.
It's
again,
like
if
there,
okay with it.
And it's there already in the D&D lore. Like I hand on heart, I haven't actually read any of the Dritz books, but I'm familiar with him enough to know. Doesn't he have? He has like a panther, doesn't he have like a hawk or something as well? Like so, yeah.
It's a hawk, but I think it's a panther.
I knew for sure he had a panther, but so like it's right there, like and like fucking, I suppose like. Like you could, if you wanted to do like a Dritz type character, but you didn't want to do Beastmaster, you could go like Gloomstalk or Ranger and take a sidekick for like is a panther.
Take a panther.
A panther. A panther's CR for a sidekick as well. By the way, the CR for sidekick, it has to be for warrior anyway, a half. Which made me very happy when I looked at the Valinor Hound and
Valinor Hounds are already a half. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very very happy with that.
I think. Honestly, I like we don't have any Beastmasters or any Artificers in our game currently. I think if you're running a game where there are no Beastmasters and there are no Battlesmiths, I don't actually see there being a confrontation at all. But if you're running a game where one player is a Ranger Beastmaster or a Battlesmith Artificer, and then the fighter is also like, hey, can I get a squire who is also basically a whole other fighter? Then it's kind of like, well, you both have companions. One of you has a companion as an addition to your class, and one of you has a companion because of your class, and one of them is considerably better. I can see there being a bit of conflict. Like you said, I think we'll test it out because we're running Frost currently in our game.
Well, we won't be statting him out as a psychic for a while yet till we actually get out of this underground. But
I think we're doing a bit of a time jump after the current kind of quest arc, and then in that time we'll say you are training Frost and stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
So I do look forward to it. Like I think I do like the stats. I like the things they included, particularly with the spellcaster. They basically go, here, pick my voice cracked there. Pick a spellcasting modifier, and then that determines the spell list you can pick from. And they can be like a healer, or what was it? They could be a healer, a chosen, or a prodigy.
Isn't it basically like cleric, wizard, and cleric, sorcerer, and wizard, or something like that? That sounds right.
Well, yeah, but the way so they can be a mage, which is like you get to choose from the wizard spell list. They can be a healer, you get to choose from the cleric or druid spell list, and they can be a prodigy, and it's bard or warlock. Weirdly, no sorcerer. But I mean, the sorcerer spells are, I think, pretty much all included.
I'd imagine meta magic would be difficult to get in there as well. Probably why rage
you wouldn't get the meta magic is the thing.
Oh yeah.
You only get the access to their spell lists, but not their abilities. So they would say, for example, there are anything that you can find on the sorcerer spell list, as far as I'm aware, will appear on either warlock, wizard, bard, or whatever else. So there's no issue. Now that I'm just thinking about it, there's no need to include it in that table.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the actual page here myself, because so I have actually built the sidekick, like I was saying earlier, but I've really only looked at the warrior one because I knew straight away I wanted to stat out my dog as like a war dog. We kind of talked about it for a while in game.
Yeah.
So I've kind of already really looked at that. As someone who's played as someone who has played mostly martial classes, I think it's pretty strong. It is basically I look at it like a very streamlined fighter that gets things from it's basically a very streamlined champion because you've got the champion improved critical.
And you have the advantage on initiative like barbs too.
Yeah, and you've got some. It's a streamlined champion with some slight barb features, just not the big one, rage.
Yeah.
Out of the three, Connor, because I realise now we've talked for quite a bit of time about sidekicks, but I've never actually mentioned that you have a choice of three, and it's the spellcaster, the expert, and the warrior.
Oh, by the way, the thing we've been talking about for 30 minutes is this.
Yeah. I thought of it a while ago, but we were in a good spot, so we didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
It basically you kind of hit on it earlier as well. It basically breaks down to a thief, a rogue spellcaster, and a martial character.
Yeah.
And you can
kind of the three pillars of character building.
Yeah, cleric isn't there? Sorry, yeah. And just as a sidebar entirely too, it's nothing to do with the actual how it's mechanically built or something. The art for the sidekicks is absolutely fantastic. It's the most adorable thing in the world.
I saw. So there is. Okay, where is he? It's the spellcaster one. There is a bullywug.
Oh yeah.
And he's wearing a wizard's hat, and he has a little spell book, and I love him. I love him so.
He's got a little frog familiar on his shoulder as well.
I'm just seeing that actually. I love him so much. I was flicking through all the sidekick stuff when the book first came out in D&D Beyond, and I'm like, that's cool. That bullywug wizard, I'm in.
Yeah, I love the there's like a goblin in there's like a goblin in like a shiny pink dress casting I guess it's like dancing lights or something.
Dancing lights,
yeah. Oh my god, it's so great. And then you get down to the warriors. Then and there's an Asimar who looks just pretty awesome. He's got some serious dreads. There's an absolutely hilarious warrior chef Furbug, which I'm a big fan of. And then there's the best boy.
The best doggo, who's also got one eye.
Yeah, he's also, and it's the same eye too.
It is the same eye as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was.
I think the art actually, just as a side note, Tasha's overall is so good. Oh.
Do you want to show people your special edition cover?
I will. So I waited long enough for it because of delivery times with COVID and everything.
The art is so good. For audio listeners, it's the special edition cover of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's just absolutely beautiful.
If you look at the back here as well, if you can see that.
Oh, Baba Yaga's what is it?
It's Baba Yaga's house, and you can see the
chicken legs. Oh my god, that's so class!
It's really, really good.
I'm regretting not getting the special edition and just getting it on digital
now. Yeah, and I think sidekicks have a lot going for them. Not perfect, but hey, there's few enough things that come out in D&D that are 100% perfect. I'm sure we can nitpick all day if we wanted to.
Absolutely, I think one thing we can definitely agree on is they look like they'll be effective.
Oh, definitely. And again, it also could be a good idea. Just thought of it now. If maybe you only have 2 players.
Yeah.
Maybe you only have 2 players, and one of them wants to be a thief, one wants to be a warrior. Again, I keep going back to healer because I feel like parties need healers.
Yeah.
What if you had a squire who was actually really religious? So now the fighter's going to have a squire, and that squire is going to be learned from the cleric spell list.
Totally.
Just to round out your party again, and I think that's actually great that you don't have to run. You're essentially running a whole other character, but it's a nice way of introducing it and having them be as an addition to the already existing characters on the roster. Here's someone who isn't just a rando; it's someone who is linked to one of the existing characters.
Exactly, and it's also like a huge opportunity for role play and just character development and stuff. You could easily have if you wanted to take on a follower of any kind, whether it's the expert or the warrior or the spellcaster, you could easily tie that into a friend from your backstory has sought you out for various reasons, and now after going on an adventure for you decides that this is the life for them. They stay on with you as a follower, and I don't know, I suppose depending on what way you want to start them out, that's an easy way to add a new a cleric or a healer or a spellcaster or a warrior or a rogue or an assassin, something like that to your party. Particularly if it's something like you were saying, something you were lacking, like lacking a healer. I know it's a trap a lot of parties fall into, ours included.
Even though clerics in 5e are amazing.
Oh man, I'm absolutely playing a cleric sometime soon. They're just so good. Yeah. But Connor, I think that's all the time we have for today.
You stole my line. I was going to say that to you.
Oh, yes! Get in there.
I was the last 30 seconds or a minute. I was looking at the time and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm going to wait for Martin to say something, and then I'm going to do my bit, where I say, but Martin, I think that's all the time we have today.
No, it's okay. No, you go ahead. We can edit it out. We'll let it out. It's fine.
Your host this week. That's fine.
No, it's cool. Whatever. It's cool. Sorry, I thought I was being organized. No, go on, Connor. You can send us off for this week's episode.
Well, Martin, I would send us off, but Martin, that's all the time we have for today.
Oh, I did not know.
Right
I
there?
did not know. Awesome. Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me here on the MicFlayers podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important.
Indeed. Awesome. And you can find me here as well on the MicFlayers podcast. You can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which should be just down here. You can also find us, the podcast in general, on Twitter at MicFlayers Pod on Twitter, which should be down in the right-hand corner. And I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Murt, MURRT. Recently, I've been doing a world redesign, so if that's something you guys want to have a look at, it should be up on my Twitch by the time it goes out. I'm sure I'm still working on it by the time this goes live. But yeah,
all the maps.
Oh man, I literally doubles the landmass in my world. But we can get onto that another day when I finish the map.
Hey, maps. I'm going to add that to the list of potential topics.
Awesome. I'd actually love to talk to you about maps because you make some cool maps. But
thank you very much,
ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be it for today. Thank you very, very much for listening to the MicFlayer podcast, and we will see you all again same time next week. Bye bye.
Bye guys. See you again.